Good evening, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'll make sure I see one doesn't appear to be on.
Doesn't appear to be coming over the microphone, though.
Okay,
Speakers.
as long as it's coming in.
But it doesn't seem to be coming over the speakers. I just hear you
Yeah.
from over there.
I
You
can
don't-
hear,
you
I can
don't
hear
hear-
you.
You can?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, if, I think we're recording, so we're good on that. Good evening, everybody. As you know from the agenda, our first order of business, since it's a new year, new meeting, is to elect officers, and to do that, as secretary, I will begin that process and allow you to nominate someone, go ahead and fill that position, and then the new chair can begin to manage the meeting from that point on. So with no further ado, I would receive nominations from the floor for the position of Board of Zoning Appeals Chairman for 2020. It's as you know, a one-year position.
I'd like to nominate Jim Codner.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Probably not. Close the nominations. Do I hear a vote for Mr. Codner for chair?
Aye.
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 He voted for himself, very good.
Fix this in.
We have a unanimous vote for Mr. Codner to be our new chairman for the BZA for the 2020 year. So with that, Mr. Codner, you are now able to go ahead and take the gavel and oversee the naming of the vice chairman and the secretary.
Okay.
If you have questions, let me know.
Good, okay. That's helpful. Thank you. I'm glad you have that. Okay, we need to elect a vice chairman. Floor is open for nominations.
I nominate Charles Morgan.
Second.
Are there any other nominations?
I guess that's me.
Let's vote. All in favor of Mr. Morgan, raise your hand. There are no noes. Mr. Morgan's elected 4-0.
Next will be secretary, Mr.
Okay, so we now need to elect a secretary. Do I hear a nomination?
I'll nominate Bill. I'll second.
Third.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor of Bill, raise your hand. Vote is unanimous, 4-0.
Does that come with a pay raise by any chance?
Pardon me?
Does that come with a pay raise by any
Yes, it does, by all means.
Only if your boss will, same one you got last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay, the next item of business before us is approval of the calendar for 2020 for this board. Do we have a sample of the calendar, Bill, or?
Let's see, I hope I included it in the package.
It's in here.
Oh, it's in the pack. Okay, I'm sorry.
What we did with that is essentially use the same time frames as we have been using. Fourth Monday, or whatever it is. But we also, went ahead and showed the January meeting for 2021. That way, in case we don't have a meeting till deep into the year, we've got that one already set up. So that's the schedule as we have it, but if you see anything there that looks like it could be problematic to you, let me know, or edit it, change it, it's up to you. We tried to make sure we avoided, potential problems and holidays, of course, so.
I'll move the calendar as proposed.
Seconds? We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the calendar? Any issues with the calendar at all?
No.
Okay, all in favor of accepting the calendar as presented?
Aye.
It's unanimous, 4-0. The calendar is adopted. Okay, we move now, we have approval of the minutes of the September 23rd, 2019 meeting. I'm sure we all remember in detail that meeting. But you have before you the minutes. Are there any comments or additions to the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on the minutes on page 3, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that starts out saying, Mr. Gilster stated in the last of that sentence, the first sentence, it should be so that site visits are not needed. Right now, it says site visits are needed. So it'd be the word, add the word not before, in between are and needed.
Sounds like that's an important item to get in there. Are there any other comments on the minutes as written? We'll have a motion then to adopt the minutes as amended this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor of adopting the minutes as amended then? Aye. Vote is 4-0. Minutes are adopted. Or approved, I should say. Okay, the main business at hand tonight, variance request for application number VA 20-000001. Request for a 20-foot variance from the 25-foot front setback requirement from the right-of-way line for property along Clemson Boulevard for the placement of a freestanding business sign. Bill, could we have a statement of the matter?
I'll get back to that. I'll set this up for you. Okay. On the screen, I've shown the photo of the site in question that was submitted, and I'll explain that further, and also the site plan, that's all in the packet for you. The issue here, the matter in question, the issue here is that the applicant is planning to locate a freestanding sign for this new business, Deep South Defense. You're probably very well aware of this just by passing along Highway 123 near Clemson. This is a new business which is for a shooting range at that location. The zoning ordinance requires that any freestanding sign meet the setback requirements that are set forth for the district where that sign is going to be located. So it would be the same setback requirement as, say, the building setback. In this case, 25 feet from the front of the property, or the right-of-way, edge of right-of-way of Highway 123, Clemson Boulevard. And the applicant has indicated that that's problematic for them because of the orientation of the parking area, and that this requirement would place the sign deep into the parking lot area and in the drive area that's been set out to, if you look at the site plan, which would be on the next drawing, that you can see how that's oriented. And it would place the sign within the drive lane of access area. In addition, the applicant is showing a future connection that they're attempting to do between the convenience store next door, 7-Eleven, and the new business. And that driveway would come directly into that area and through that area where the sign would be if you placed it exactly 25 feet back from the edge of the right-of-way. So the request is that they be allowed to place the sign within 5 feet. So that's a 15-foot variance request for this this application. And of course, you have in your packet in the staff report the usual criteria that are the applicant's required to meet in order to justify a variance request. And the applicant has indicated their rationale for that and the application itself, which is also in your packet, addressing each of the criteria. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We operate here, we'll give the applicant a chance to state their case, and however you want to. Then there'll be staff comments. Staff will give us some comments on what you're specifically saying. If there's opposition here, they'll get a chance to state their case. And then as an applicant, if you want to say anything to rebut what the opposition has said, you'll get a chance to do that. Then we'll have a chance for unsworn public comment. If anyone else is here, just wants to say something, they'll be able to do that. And finally, if the board has questions, we'll ask questions if we need clarification. And then we'll go into a determination of whether the variance is accepted or not. Any questions on all that? Okay. So first step then is to ask the applicant to come forward and state their case, please. You do have to come over, state your name, please.
Sure. You let me do it here from the podium?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I am Eric McCullum from Deep South Defense, one of the partners of the business. So what we're asking for is a variance to relocate the sign from its what it should be, according to the rules stated in the county code, to 5 foot, which I believe is a 20-foot variance. This would put it in line. Could you slide to? Yeah, right there. So you can't see it from the picture, but from this picture, the 7-Eleven sign, it would put it directly in line or in the same position, offset from the road, actually. It'd be closer to what is already out there.
Could you say that again? I'm not sure I followed what you just said.
I'm sorry. Apologies. The sign that is at 7-Eleven, placing our sign at 25 foot would, make a difficulty for the connection for the 123 Corridor Act. Plus, it would put it 5 foot off of him, my neighbor. But we're asking for a 20-foot variation, or variance, so that we only do a 5 foot. That's a 250-foot right-of-way on Highway 123. So what we're looking to do is just actually put it in line with the other signs that are already out there and not have such a severe setback. That's what we're asking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say then?
No,
That's fine, I'm just asking.
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Staff, do you have any comments, or are there anyone else who wants to speak in favor of the applicant? Bill, do you have any comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is John Royal. I owned the mobile home park behind where the Roadrunner is going, behind the Roadrunner, where the Roadrunner used to be and the new Bojangles is going. My grandmother's house was right there, was there for almost 100 years. My family's been in that area. I'm 68. God, how'd that happen? But anyway, I'm 68 years old. I've grown up there. I own property there. I do not own the mobile home park anymore, but I do own property right there on Davis Creek Road. I look at this as a big plus for the neighborhood, a big plus for the community, a big plus for the county, because with indoor shooting range, it will cut down on some of the people shooting in their backyard, possibly impacting on their neighbor's property and potentially hurting someone. I think this will be a big plus to the community, county, etc., with opportunities for training, for correct firearms ownership and usage. And I think a 20-foot variance to bring the signs in line with the existing signage is very little to ask for the investment that these gentlemen have made for the benefit of the whole community. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Bill, do you have any comments from staff?
Nothing other than some of the signage and other structures that are in that area probably predate the current zoning standard. In fact, that current setback requirement of 25 for the signs is the result of an amendment to the ordinance some time back, not that long ago, that was intended to clarify what the setback requirements are for signs, because it was not clear in the ordinance up to that point. So what was chosen was just to make it consistent with structural setbacks, and that's what happened there. So it's some years ago, they're probably either some of the signs predated zoning or they predated the standard that are already present in that area.
Okay, thank you. My sense is there are no other comments for or against this proposal. Are there any other comments that anyone would like to make? Anyone from the board have questions?
Well, I have some discussion that I'd like to have.
I agree, I think we should have some discussion. Let's get into the approval process and have the discussion then. Does that make sense? Okay, so we can do one of two things, I believe. We have three criteria to be satisfied to approve the variance. We can either vote on those individually and have discussion at each one, or we can pull them all together and vote on the entire proposal. What's the druthers of the board to do?
I'd like to make a motion that we deal with them individually, one by one.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we'll deal with them individually. Okay, so we have three criteria that have to be met in order for this to be approved. The first one, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. Why don't we have a motion and a second to proceed, and then we can have discussion on that. Does that make sense? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to proceed with discussing this.
So moved.
Second.
Your second? All in favor? No, that's not what we want to do. Sorry. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? That there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property.
Yeah, I guess in my opinion, it's their parking lot, it's their sign. They knew the rules about where the sign had to be. The fact that the sign now would be in the middle of the parking lot, that's their design problem. To me, that we shouldn't have a sign be closer than it should be just because of that. So I guess I don't see that there's any extraordinary situation that would mandate us to approve this request of 20-foot setback variance.
Any other comments?
I guess I do have a comment. The parking lot, does the parking lot itself extend within the 25-foot setback?
If I may, if I look at the site plan, the parking lot goes down almost to the 25-foot setback, not quite. The parking lot itself.
Well, the 25-foot setback is actually in the middle of the parking lot. Is that not correct, where that red X is? If we're going to allow somebody to extend their parking lot past that setback, why don't we not let them move their sign? Because we can plainly see, even from the pictures that they have, they've already made a parking lot, which to me, it's there, is it not? We're not here to discuss the parking lot. The parking lot is evidently part of the structure and part of the overall design, but now we're down to a sign.
To me, I think what we're looking at is the county does have sign design standards. The design standard says signs, freestanding signs like this need to be 25 feet back from the right-of-way. Doesn't mean parking lots have to be back or anything like that. It just means signs need to be back.
Point being, while the parking lot may not be a part of the building and it can extend that, I still think that it would be beneficial to the business itself to be able to relocate that sign in an area that evidently is still not a safety concern. It's not a safety issue, is it, Mr. Secretary?
The location of the sign?
Yes.
I'm not aware of anything in terms of.
And there are
signage.
there are currently still signs, even though this is a newer ordinance, are there still not signs within that 25-foot area?
I would imagine there probably are, yeah.
So now we may be talking about current zoning, but we're also talking about keeping the appeal the same and germane to the neighborhood. And I think that allowing this sign benefits all the other communities, the other businesses in that area who already have signs in those locations.
Yeah, I guess my point would be that it definitely, I can see how it benefits them as a business to say, they want the sign to be in a different place, but to me, we can't vote based on what's good for the business. We have to vote for what's good for the overall community, and there's a reason we have setbacks for signs, and that is for the look of the area.
So
And
getting to the look, if everybody else is within that range and they're the only ones, do they not stand out and look different than the rest?
would be no different for any other variance request
For a new business, is that right?
No, but I mean, if there's anything that changes in the ordinance that would apply, that applies to any new business, to the fact that other people built before there was an ordinance shouldn't be a factor in our decision-making. I think it should be based on what the current ordinance is, and do they have an extraordinary circumstance that would mean that the ordinance shouldn't apply to them? To me, that's the way we should be looking at it.
Are we still not looking for a consistent look of the area?
From this point on,
From
we
this point on.
can't do much about what has been done.
I think we should approve, I'll go ahead and say, I think we should approve the whole variance request to keep the look of the neighborhood the same. Because now what we're doing, even though there is a new rule out there, now what we're going to do is now have signs that are all over the place within that variance. You've got these other businesses that are within that area. Now, everything new is going to have to be outside that area. And I just think the consistency of the signage for that particular area should be the same.
And that's why there's different opinions on things.
But it's, we can have them put it in the middle of the parking lot. I'm sure they can put an island, but I still think that takes away from the appeal of that general area.
I guess where I come out is the county government, council and planning commission and planning department are currently working on the whole corridor, 123 corridor from this area over to Seneca. And one of the main issues there is signage. What do we need to do to get some sort of a uniform signage rule in that makes sense and doesn't lead to the kind of sign issues we have over in Clemson along 123. And I personally hate to see us provide a variance like this that allows signs so close to the right-of-way when my guess is the county's going to come down and say, hey, we really need to at least maintain the 25-foot rule, if not even put signs further back and have them less intrusive on that whole corridor. And I guess I think, as I look at it, that corner is kind of out of control. It has been developed out of any restrictive controls, and we're kind of stuck with that. I don't think we need to kind of perpetuate that down 123. And so I'm with what Bill in particular said is I just don't, I think also I don't see a compelling reason why the sign can't go somewhere else and not be as intrusive on the parking lot as it is presented. It can go one way or the other and reconfigure the parking lot and not be that big a deal.
I guess we'll just have to disagree.
Well, that's what discussion's all about.
Again, I think you're keeping the characteristic of that area the same by allowing them to move their sign a few feet.
John, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Deanna on that there's two or three items. One is putting that sign in that middle of that parking lot, I think is going to create a safety hazard. I think it's going to be difficult for cars to navigate around it all the time. And people are going to back into it or something else. It's right out in the middle of the parking area. And the other thing is that once you, if you put that in the location there where it's within the zoning, then it precludes the additional driveway, as I understand it, from the, going into the 7-Eleven, which was meant to help relieve some traffic onto 123. And when you combine that with the fact that there's already existing signs that are going to be basically in parallel with it, I don't see where it harms the aesthetics of the area. I mean, you're just basically putting another sign there in a row. So you're going to have 2 or 3 signs that are going to be in the same location. So I don't think it really harms anything.
I guess, in my mind, if they are not allowed to put the sign out at the right-of-way like they want to, if they put it, as it appears here, in the middle of the parking lot, my guess is they could put it somewhere else. It doesn't have to obstruct the driveway from the convenience store next door. It could go down the way a bit, or somewhere that isn't so obstructive, right in the middle of the parking lot.
And I guess we just have to remember that I think our job is to not question the zoning or question the rationale that was given as to why there's a 25-foot setback for signs, but that is the ordinance, and the question is, do they have a situation that would require them or to allow them to be different? And to me,
question zoning.
but just to hear me out, but to me, it isn't enough justification just to say, well, there's other people that have a less setback than that, so therefore, it's not going to be that bad. I think what we have to look forward to say, we're now to say there is a new standard. The question is, who's going to have to abide by that standard? You know, how many times are we going to say, well, there's other people that are less than that standard now, let's approve this one. And there's another one, there's some others that are less than the standard, let's approve that. At some point, we have to say, that is the standard, and unless you have some real reason that is valid that makes your situation different, we're not going to approve it.
But we question zoning in every meeting. If we went by the letter of the zoning law, we wouldn't have any cell phone towers in this county. We question it every time somebody comes in here. So to say that our job's not to question zoning is really not completely accurate. That's what we do here, and that's why it's a variance request. I think given the circumstances of this business, its location, the other signage that is currently in place, I think that it makes sense to allow them to move it. What's the height restriction in the county? What's the height restriction on signs?
65.
65? So if he wants to put up a sign somewhere else 65 feet, that's outside of that, he can do that, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Big flashing neon sign.
I'm not sure about the flashing part.
But to me, it makes sense to allow this, given the entire site. What's
The other
going on
option
now.
you have, if you want to pursue, if you chose to pursue, the other options would simply be to send forward a recommendation to council to consider an amendment to the zoning ordinance to adjust that setback requirement, particularly in that corridor. Now, we don't have a corridor overlay right now. That's been discussed, but you know, if you had a corridor overlay, you might, for example, recommend a tighter setback within that overlay or something along a very wide right-of-way like Clemson Boulevard is, where you have some room to play with there. That would be one option, but it wouldn't be an approval of the variance unless you did, you could do either one, or both. You could approve the variance and still make that recommendation to council, or, you know, or not approve it, not make the recommendation to council, but you know, those are things you certainly have an opportunity to consider, because that's one thing council, I think, likes to see from the board and from us is what's happening, what are the patterns we're seeing in the field, and how does that affect these decisions, and are we seeing certain patterns that crop up over and over? And if so, does the code need to be, reconsidered to address those problems? That's something you can certainly bring to their attention if you choose to.
Council's already got that in front of them, and they've asked Planning Commission, planning staff to look into not only signage, but also appearance standards and safety issues along the highway. So I think they're keyed in to getting something working there.
Having said that, it'll be some time.
Some time before they do it.
It's actually
Guess
formalized.
If I can make one comment, a variance, if we look at a variance, we're supposed to be looking at that property. Does it have any special conditions to that property which are different than neighboring properties that cause this sign placement, for instance, to be an issue? Like, is there some sort of configuration of the property or nature of the property which precludes them from operating, constructing their facility like other people would be able to? And for me, that just doesn't exist here. You've got a bunch of properties going along the road there, all of which are kind of the same, and this really has no defining characteristics which would preclude them from installing their facility just like anyone else.
When you look at the strip mall down the street, it is long, it is wide and narrow. This one goes back very deep into the property because it is a shooting range. You still have the back setback. You've got a lot of things that they had to work within already. So I think the shape of this building does give a little bit extra dimension because it is a very deep building. While it's not as wide, it is very deep.
But that's their choice in putting in the building. The property has not dictated that. The property allowed that, but the property didn't dictate that.
Could I ask a question to the owner? What's the possibility of your relocating that to the end of the parking lot? And within the zoning?
Okay, so, if you show the other drawing with the building placement?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that one.
yes, that one. All right, so, yep, thank you.
Putting it on the west end of the parking lot.
Right, so that's still
No.
with,
That's the east end, the other end.
I don't own that.
The Seneca end.
No, the Seneca end.
This is the property line.
Yeah. Could you put it over in that general area?
I don't own that.
But you own up to that point.
This is the road that ties the two, this is the road that goes through the parking lot. I don't,
Okay, so
I don't
that's
own
another,
this.
well, that's another egress.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't own this property. This is the property
Oh,
line. I don't
okay.
own this property.
Yeah, but you own where you've got two islands coming out there that define your parking spaces.
Yeah,
could
this,
put it-
this
you-
is,
But you could put it right.
In
for
one of
instance,
those islands.
In one of those islands down there,
That-
but up here.
that would be right next to the building.
Yeah, that right there, you could put it somewhere in there, could you not? And not
That would
obstruct your
impair
parking?
I'm sorry, that would impair the parking lot itself. So literally, somebody would run into it.
Well, you've got an island right there, I mean, isn't that an island shown there?
That is a dirt island. It doesn't have curbing.
Okay, but, I mean, you could put a curb around it and not have, people aren't just gonna run into a sign because it's there.
The other, if I may add something, it's really hard to see from this, but this sign is actually, it's about 75 foot off the edge of the deceleration lane of 123. Where we're proposing, are asking for a variance, this is actually 75 foot from the edge of the deceleration to the edge of the curbing of the parking lot. So there's no, you're not blockading any visual for the road or deceleration or access, ingress, egress.
Okay.
Actually, when you look at that drawing, the 7-Eleven sign is closer to the road than what they're proposing.
It's actually in highway right-of-way, truth be told.
I would say, considering the fact that the building is up and the driveway is in, in what they're trying to do to get the driveway over to the 7-Eleven and avoid safety hazards in the parking lot, I would think that it's a reasonable request to grant.
Sir, could I ask a question? When
Yes, sir.
you were laying this all out and designing the building and the parking lot, how recent has it been that you were aware that the sign that you wanted to put was going to be in the middle of your parking lot? Is that a fairly recent thing, or have you known that
I
for a
was
long
not-
time? or-
Yeah, so when we submitted the grading plans, the civil plans, and the building plans, all of this was in it when we submitted it, that was approved by the county. I was not aware of it until we actually asked for the permit that is required to put the sign and basically have it envelope into our building plan for the foundation structure. I was not aware of the 25-foot setback at all.
So Mr. Huggins, when somebody gets a permit for the overall construction and the site layout, and is the sign layout part of what's being approved at that time?
I don't remember enough of the history of the submittals on this to know whether sign was indicated in the plans that were initially submitted, because you in theory could submit, your site plan, your building plans and all without showing any signs, and then come back later and submit for the sign. So I'm not sure in this case what the, time sequence was on that. I really don't recall.
Sir, one more question.
Yes, sir.
Was this layout part of your request for a building permit,
Yes, sir.
just as it is?
Just as it is.
With,
Part of the
showing
plan.
the sign off to where where you'd like to put it, or where it would land up?
Yes, sir. This is the civil plan that was approved by,
And that was submitted at the time to the
Yes, sir.
planning department, or to the,
Okay, any more questions for the applicant?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other
So
discussion?
is the point that you're getting, was that kind of implying that they thought they had permission and it wasn't until recently? So that would be
That would be a reason for hardship.
interesting.
Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second before us. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Let's have a vote. Is there, who's in favor of that being in the affirmative? Are you voting for that? Okay, thank you. 2-4, are there two, who is against that? Okay, we have a tie vote, Bill, 2-2. I believe that means the motion loses, doesn't it?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Motion is denied. As I understand it then, there's no need to go through the rest of the criteria.
No, I mean, there's no prohibition on you doing that, but.
We can do that.
you Effectively denied the request by denying that one component of it.
I'm sorry, we've had comment from the audience.
I'm a landowner, I'd like to speak.
Pardon me?
Said I am a local landowner down there and a lifelong resident of Oconee County. May I address the board?
Not right now, no. We're done with comments from the audience. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's go through these, for a matter of record, let's go through the other two. The second one is the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. In other words, these conditions, the conditions that were talked about before, these conditions do not apply to other property in the vicinity.
That's true.
We have a motion in the,
So,
we have a motion in the affirmative to that.
yes.
And it's seconded?
Okay, motion is second, discussion.
Again, I don't think this property is any different than anybody else. I think that if we were, I think the next building right down the line, they're going to all have a similar situation. That somehow we have to say what the rules are. So I don't think there is.
That's kind of where I'm at also, I think, the same.
Well, I think it's different from the standpoint that they went ahead and built the building in the location that it's in, and that they put the parking lot where it is based on what they originally submitted for the building permit, and therefore, it's different from that standpoint. Somebody else, knowing this at this point in time, they could be cautioned by the planning department that they need to take into consideration where the signage is going. In this particular case, they weren't aware of that, and therefore they went ahead, built the building, and put that in the most optimum site for the configuration of what they were trying to build. And then what's left was the parking lot.
And I don't think we're not telling them they don't need a sign, because obviously they need a sign, and a sign is very important to their business. I think what we would be saying is that try to live within the guidelines, and if you want to come back and with something else and have another, something that doesn't, 20 feet is a big variance, so maybe there's some other way to have this thing work for them. I think that's all we're saying, is that this request is a big variance and from what the standard is. That's my view.
Yeah, but it's not a big variance in light of what's already there, the 7-Eleven,
But I don't
for
think
example.
I don't think that's what should be in our consideration, is what's there already. That, we didn't have anything to do with that. And the new zoning ordinance states what we want from here on in. And then we have to decide, each party that come in that wants to do something different than that, we have to say, is that valid or is that valid? Is that unique and different? Is that not? But I guess I've said enough.
But isn't it true, I mean, that we're here to consider variances and to look at things that make sense and are reasonable?
Absolutely.
And to grant them as we see fit. And then in there lies the problem. Two of us seem to feel one way and two the other way, so. But when you get down to it, I mean, that's our job, is to make a value judgment on whether or not this would harm anything, harm the county or harm adjacent property owners or anything else, or the state for that matter. And it seems like this is fairly a harmless variance that they're asking for.
Well, I guess we have different opinions.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
Why there's more than one of us up here.
Yeah. No, true.
Okay, so this can be confusing, I think. The motion before us is these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. In other words, are we saying this is different than other property in the vicinity? Okay, so these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the city. All in favor of that?
I think you got it mixed up still a little bit, because.
These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity.
No.
Okay.
No.
So is that a vote, or?
Yeah.
No, we need to vote on that.
Yeah.
We have a motion to the affirmative on that. We have a motion before us that says, yes, that is true. These conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. In other words, this do not apply, so this property is different. We don't look at it differently.
We don't look at it differently.
But this,
The motion is that we do look at it differently.
Okay.
So if you vote in the affirmative, you're looking at it differently. If you're
Okay.
against it, you're not
Gotcha,
looking at
gotcha,
it
okay.
differently.
so, all those in favor of this condition? Okay, two in favor, all those opposed? Two opposed. This particular condition, this particular criteria fails. Okay, criteria 3, because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Okay, would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Do I have a motion to the affirmative of this?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, any discussion?
So, just to me, I understand, so this is saying that, say it one more time.
Okay, because of these conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would, in this application of the current sign standards would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. So it would unreasonably restrict, therefore we want to grant the variance. Is everyone clear on that? I think the wording is always tricky on these. Okay, any discussion on this? Okay, we have a motion we're in the affirmative, so because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. All those in favor? Okay, we have 2 in favor. All those opposed? 2 opposed. Okay, so the following. I think this is the summary. The authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent uses or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So, if we were to grant the variance, is it going to be detrimental to the neighborhood? Or the
Move in the affirmative.
second, we have a second. Any discussion?
I think we need it.
Okay. All those in favor? 2 in favor? All those opposed? 2 opposed. Okay, so we've gone through actually 4 criteria for granting the variance. All 4 of them failed to gain a majority vote. So we're tied on that. We don't have a majority vote on any one of those. So based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that the proposed variance be approved or denied? In other words, let me restate that. Based on the evidence presented to the board, do I hear a motion that proposed variance be denied? Period.
Haven't we already done that?
Well,
By
this
having a
is
tie vote?
taking into account the entire, everything we've looked at. So this is really a summary motion. So
Yeah, you've effectively already
we've already done that.
done it. This is-
Have I gone too far then, Bill? Do we not need to do that? It's fine with me, I'm just,
You were just covering the same ground. It wasn't necessary. It's okay, but it's
okay.
just addressing what you've already done, because one denial is all it takes.
Okay, I thought we needed some statement in here that formalized that, yes, we have denied the application. Okay,
I think you could do that administratively based on the votes.
okay. Okay, I think that concludes our consideration of this variance request. Okay, any public comment on other non-agenda items? Any comment on any other issues?
Any comment on this one, right?
We're done with this one, I'm sorry. I tried very hard to give you all the opportunity to state your case and express your opinion, I really did.
With a comment on businesses in the county being given some leeway when necessary by this committee be appropriate.
Please stand up, please come to the podium. Glad to hear what you have to say. Again, please state your name, so,
I'm John Royal.
yes.
I'm a property owner. I'm a lifelong county resident. I live in Oconee County. I've had a business in the city of Seneca. I've had a business quarter mile from the location of this business that's going in. I do not have anything to do business-wise with these gentlemen. I do know them. I count them as friends. I'm very proud of them to put their lives, their fortunes, any money that they now have up to bring a business that I feel is necessary in this county that will do the county good stead. I really think that in the future, when you have a business that is trying to go along with the norms of the businesses near them, how's that for not touching on that? The norms of the businesses near them, I think some leeway should be granted when it's a minor item under consideration. That, my friends, is an opinion. Again, I've lived here all my life, and I'm so proud to see businesses developing down on what used to be a dead end of the county. When you have businesses in the future asking for minor tweaking of existing and new rules, please try to give them as much leeway as you can, because I've found that the more you restrict businesses by not giving some leeway occasionally, the less the businesses want to locate. Fair enough?
Surely, yes, thank you for your comments.
Did I do that good?
Yes, you did. You did an excellent job.
I
Thank
didn't
you.
touch on anything.
Appreciate you coming up to make your comments. That's very helpful. If I can make just a personal comment, number one, I have nothing against the business. I think the business is going to be a great asset out there, and will be a benefit to the county. And number two, I'm sure we'd be glad to take your comments about not unduly restricting future businesses as they come along. I personally know at some point in time that as county considers overlay for that particular stretch of 123, that there will be an opportunity for public comments directly impacting that overlay, so that the county's going to be considering signage, appearance, that kind of thing. And if you're interested in making sure they don't go too far, that's the time to come up and make your comments. And it's very beneficial for folks like you to do that. It's just an editorial comment. It's really outside the business of the board here, but it's an editorial comment from me.
May I ask a question? May I ask a question?
Well, real quick.
If I start going into territory you don't want me to go in, please say
Well, let's not get too far, because we're really here just to decide the variance tonight.
Okay. When a building permit has been granted, not necessarily this one, when a building permit has been granted and the building lot, parking lot is a very long ways from the main highway, I would think a little leeway would be in order when we're talking about such a small amount of thing for future reference.
I understand what you're saying.
There, sorry, had to slip that one in. That's all I got.
Yes. I've tried to bend over backwards for the audience to let them have their say where they want to. That's all.
May I ask a question? Do they have any right to appeals coming back to this board when there's a full board present?
I don't believe so. I believe this is a final verdict. Am I right, Bill?
There would need to be some new and compelling evidence that had not already been introduced.
Just a question, that's all.
And after, beyond that, the next level of appeal is to the courts. Now, there is a process for, a review that stops short of that, but generally it's to the courts. But yes, if there was some compelling evidence that could be brought to the table, that would be new evidence. It could be utilized to bring it back to the board at the next meeting. That's a possibility. The other thing I will mention, just to clarify something, is I'm not sure I did clarify it earlier on the sign permit. As far as I know, and this is without recalling the whole history of it, the approvals were for approvals for the site plan and the building permits for this. And the sign permit approval was a totally separate item, and it is a separate item. That has to be submitted as a separate application. So obviously, they did not come in the door at the same time. Now, how you match those up is another question, but I don't believe they were, all those applications were not submitted at once. So if there was some confusion about, well, what did we know or not know at the time of submittals, all I can say is I think there would have been a step process And normally the sign permit applications are the last thing that come in the door. So how that was processed, I'd have to review that, I don't know.
It's pretty evident to me they didn't plan on putting it in the middle of the parking lot.
Okay.
May I say one more thing? I know it's closed. I
We're-
understand that.
Yeah, hey,
May I?
this is taking a lot longer than we normally take.
Well, I understand that.
I'm gonna get comments from my compadres here.
I'm $2.7 million into this project, so it's pretty near and dear to the heart. I see what you're asking for, and I understand what you're asking for. But one thing that hasn't been shown you in any way, form, or fashion is the fuel island roof from 7-Eleven. If I put my sign where you're asking me to, you'll never see it. That's just one of the things that hasn't been brought up in discussion. There's no diagram that shows you that.
Okay,
And I apologize for bringing that up late, but that's kind of where I'm at.
okay. Thank you, sir. Let me just ask the board's feedback. We've gotten a lot of extraneous feedback tonight. I've allowed, folks in the audience to have their say. It's kind of my feeling that that's good to do as long as it doesn't get out of bounds. Are you folks okay with that?
I'd encourage,
I don't want to,
I'd encourage.
obviously, we don't want to get out of bounds, but if you're okay with that, that's the way I would intend to proceed as chairman.
It's a public forum. We're here to serve the public.
Okay, good. Well, I hope you all at least felt you had a chance to have your say. That's-
Mr. Chairman, one thing I would make sure is understood that, anything that, when there's a process that goes beyond the actual action on the case, the question then becomes, is anything else that's said in this room, even though the vote's already been taken, subject to consideration if the case ends up in some sort of litigation? So I would be a little bit cautious in the future about continuing a discussion on a case past the actual,
See, that's good
past
advice.
the action.
That's good advice.
Once the action is taken, it really can't, it's done.
Okay, that's good advice, Bill, thank you. Okay, so we've been through item 6, public comments. Staff update.
I don't really have anything special today, but we did hear, we were talking about the corridor study that, as you know, was done last year for that 123 corridor, and that there will be further work on that project this year going forward in terms of a committee to decide, what elements do we want to focus on, what do we want to bring forward to sort of suggest to council that we might want to introduce as a kind of overlay concept for that corridor. So that work is continuing. And we are looking at building code issues. I think Mr. Agar is pretty familiar with this. This came up at council recently, and we will, planning commission, the building codes folks, and the county attorney will be reviewing some issues regarding building codes, review, standards, et cetera, going forward, and that'll be an interesting project. There was some discussion about the possibility of moratorium on certain types of construction for a period of time. Council chose not to go down that path, so that's not really in the picture at the moment. But fairly significant amount of activity still going on, as you know, and we are expecting to see. In fact, we do have another student housing project in the hopper right now that's under review at Hartwell Village. So they keep coming.
That's good.
That's all I have.
Yeah, we just got to handle it the right way, I think. I think I
Only-
would agree.
only if
The
it's
county's got to look out
constructed
for,
properly.
well, the county's got to look out for its own best interests and make sure it's done right. Anything else, Bill?
That's it.
Okay. Old business? New business? Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
We'll do second.
All in favor? Votes 3-1 to adjourn. We have one who'd like to stay the night.
Allowed.
Well, we can't have
There
it
was
unanimous.
one that. 3-1 on that? I didn't,
Yes. Yes.
You?
I'll go
He's
against
just
the
being
grain.
obstinate.
Meeting stands adjourned.
Exhaust everything else, right?